It's grammar because we say it on the basis of the rule. So if the use of this phenomenon is guided by a rule, then it's grammar. So there's a generalization. Like there's a general rule that works for a certain area of context, a certain area of ideas. If there's only one item, one meaning, there is no rule. There's just like lexical equivalent. It's not grammar. You use this lexical equivalent when you want to say it. If you don't, like, there is no grammar in the word tomorrow. I mean, there's very little grammar, like about where to put it, or order, but you say tomorrow where you want to say it. There is no rule. But sometimes you can take vocabulary, something like that is vocabulary, like lexis by definition, and a little bit generalize it. And say, guys, they're all together, it's all one category, and they have similar features, and this is how we can unite them. I cannot come up with an example for that right now, but I think you understand me. But I can give you an example of things done in the opposite way. You take grammar, you take a rule and sacrifice it, kill it, and say it's not grammar. There is no rule. It's just item and lexical equivalent. This is what I do when I teach conditionals, for example. I say it's just be. Just 4 ways to say be in English. That's it. Because I believe there are no conditional 2, conditional 3, they don't exist. It's just every time you say be, you make a choice. That's it. If если бы сейчас, it's one choice, если бы тогда, second choice, я бы сейчас, it's third choice, я бы тогда, it's fourth choice. That's it. You can combine them in any way. Start with conditional 2, finish conditional 3, or any, it doesn't matter. There are 4 items. And I teach it as well, of course it's still grammar because it's a certain structure that works for all of the verbs, but still I teach it as like a lexical item. When I teach perfect, I may also teach it as a lexical thing, a little bit lexical, like have means now. Сейчас сделал. Have means now. So you can lexicalize grammar. But it's, again, your creativity, it's your choice. And if you give a rule, you teach grammar. If you just give an equivalent, you teach vocabulary. And it's up to you, it's your choice. You may like it, you may dislike it. So, I mean, you can make this choice on the basis of your preferences. It's just how I feel it, I like it this way. Or you may use this choice because you see, well, it's better for the students, it's more effective, it works better for them to teach it in this way. But yeah, your ability to generalize, your ability to find the key words, to describe the differences, your ability to find these differences and to present them in a way that has never been done before, find these differences, similarities, and create the whole picture. And be able to describe, actually, it's also, when you have a picture, when you know all the parts of the picture, all the tenses, the modal verbs, and so on and so forth, then you really know it, you can easily explain the difference between any item in the picture, between any 2 items in the picture. You take them, what is the differences, what is the similarity, what is the difference, what is the similarity. And it's this knowledge of English grammar. That again takes years to develop, but it's done with the first step. You just start doing it. You don't think about how to do that. You just, okay, I have a problem, I need to teach present simple tonight, so okay, let me try. Just do it, just explain it in some way and see. Yes, it is about all the time analyzing. So if you don't have the habit of a constant analysis of the examples, because this is how you will understand that sometimes this grammar rule doesn't work because there is more to that. It's possible, you can see it only if you have the habit of constant thinking about, okay, but in this context it was used in a bit different way. But in this context, but look, it's yeah, I understand the rule is this, but look, here it's a bit different. So it's constantly analyzing the context in which this grammar phenomenon is used and seeing whether it's according to the rule or is slightly different. And this is how you work out your rules. This is the way you should go. Always analyze and try to find similarities, differences, and explain why it's used in this way. If you have the habit of constant analysis, then you have a chance of learning to teach English grammar very well. If you don't need it, if you don't have this inner need to categorize things, to explain things, to put things in order, then you will never be good grammar teachers. You may be good teachers because sometimes there are people who don't need grammar, who can live without grammar. They are the people who can, there are very few people like that. Very few students who can act because, well, you give them the example and they just copy the example because they feel it. And lots of people can't function because they don't understand the rule. And you have to give them the rule. But the problem is then you give them the next rule and it will somehow be in conflict with the first rule that you will give. Or create a kind of a mess. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 rules together, a mess, and that's it. And your students can function, or they function, they have a mess in their speech. So you'll have to travel the road and learn to teach good grammar in a good way. Well, but if you do, then you have to do these things. All the time think and analyze and generalize and explain and create new categories, find new similarities, new differences. It's constant work on yourself. And it's rewarding. It's definitely rewarding because it is very much like a research. You're doing a research. You're partly an artist, partly a scientist. It's fun. It is really fun because it really can be presented in different ways. So, one more thing. It's between you and your students whether to use the words like subject, verb, conjunction or not. Most of the time you shouldn't. I try not to overload them with terminology. I don't explain it in that way most of the time. But of course I have to use the words like subject and verb, and the parts of speech I have to mention them. So that they have to have some very, very, very basic understanding of grammar, like of Russian grammar, for example. And if they don't, I have to teach that quickly, because I operate these terms anyway. But I don't go too far. And it motivates my students. But sometimes I just spend like 30 minutes of the lesson just describing English grammar to them. Like giving them a broader picture. And this is something I'm going to finish with, actually. And I give them this picture and they don't practice anything. They don't learn anything, like anything practical at all. But they just look at this picture and they say, wow, great, I like it. So it's like a breath of fresh air for them. This contemplation. They contemplate the beauty of English grammar. I cannot now give you the whole picture with all the details, but you will understand. So I'll start like this. So grammar is morphology and syntax, and of course the most important part of grammar is the grammar of a verb. So the forms of different verbs and where you put these verbs in a sentence. But you should know that there are 3 types of verbs. There's auxiliary. Auxiliary verbs, they mean nothing. Only say when it happened. And they are not used on their own, so they have this auxiliary serving function. It's like, for example, I am listening. Am means nothing, it means now, actually. So it's not translated into Russian. Then there's modal verbs, like I am to go. Am means something already. It has 50% meaning, 50% auxiliary function, because it's not used on its own. It has to have another verb. So it's this. I am to go. And there are full verbs. Full verbs, they just mean something. They don't need any other verbs. Like I am here. I am here. Or I have a book. Or I know it. So the full verb. And when we're learning tenses, we're learning the combination of point 1 and point 3. Auxiliary plus full verb. It's tenses. And that's why I have to say, guys, when it's modal verb, sometimes students ask, like, oh, what tense is it? Guys, it's not a tense, it's a modal verb. because there are two things. It's modal verbs, point 2, and tenses, it's point 1 and 3. Combination of auxiliaries and full verbs. And they're different, so there is no tense there. There's no continuous in the word can. You can't say I'm canning. Then you take a full verb, and I take a full verb, and I say there are two basic types or forms, whatever, of a full verb. There's a non-finite form and there's a finite form. I say it, but then I say don't think too much about terminology, just think of the categories. Личная, безличная форма глагола. A личная форма глагола, so finite verb form, it's tenses. It's a verb form that has its own time and it has its own subject. You know when it happened, you know who did it. I am doing, he plays. Plays, you know who did it, you know when it happens. Plays is a finite verb form. And there are some non-finite verb forms, and the characteristic of these finite verb forms is that they don't have their time. You never know when it happened. Looking at it, like to do, to play, doing, playing. You don't know when it happened, and you don't know who did it. I want to go. I don't know who did it. So, and these verb forms, they borrow the subject and the time from the main verb. And what else is important here is that Russian language, when you do non-finite verb forms, which is participle and infinitive, по-русски причастие, непричастие, инфинитив, неопределенная форма глагола. Russian thinks of them in terms of прошедшее, настоящее, like сидящий, сидевший, прошедшее, настоящее. English doesn't care about past and present, it cares only about at the same time or one after another, at the same time one after another. Doing, it's at the same time, having done, it's before. So, the way the English thinks is different. Yeah, and I may continue, there are other things. There are other things that we learn when we learn English grammar or the grammar of a verb. But I give them this picture, I'll give them all these points, these examples, explanations, they just look at it, and they feel, wow. They leave the lesson and they say, well, we had a good lesson, we learned something. And of course I don't do it too much, like once, actually, with one group. And of course they need practice and everything, I agree with that. But just for a change, just to help them have order in their head, to motivate them to have a sort of change from speaking and doing some exercise activities, I may do that, and they're happy and I'm happy. So it should be there. So I hope that I've been helpful today, and you will want to teach grammar and to learn to teach grammar. And well, I don't know. That's it. Next time, I guess I'll be talking about teaching vocabulary. Yeah, very short talk. Thank you very much. Goodbye.